Hallo an alle Tierfreunde da draußen.
Hello to all animal lovers out there. Today we will introduce you to some animal species that are super exciting and not everyone has heard about. Because there are a lot of animals, we'll start with 4 animals today. I will introduce you to 2 animals from Germany, and today I have a very special guest, Ben from the Jane Goodall Institute, Australia. He will talk about 2 animals from his country. And at the end, we will tell you what all these animals have in common.
Diese Tiere letztlich gemeinsam haben.
Hi Tessie! Thanks for having me on the program. It's so good to be here. Hi from Australia. Hi to everyone watching. My name is Ben. I live in Melbourne, Australia, on the south coast. Yeah, it's really exciting to be here and really excited to talk about some pretty cool Australian animals today.
Ja, ich freue mich auch.
Oh yes, I'm excited too. Before we start, our German viewers already know what the climate is like in Germany. And of course, the animals have also adapted to this environment. But what is the climate like in Australia?
Yeah, great question. I mean, Australia is the smallest continent in the world, but it's also the largest island, right? So we have a really big landmass that means we've got a lot of different climates. In the west coast, it's quite dry. We have a lot of shallow oceans, which means that we have a lot of underwater grasslands and beautiful beaches. On the north coast, the temperature is quite tropical. So we have the oldest rainforests in the world, and there's wet seasons and dry seasons. In the center of Australia, right in the middle, we have desert, red desert. It's a beautiful part of the world. And that's very dry all year round with barely any rain. And then on the east coast, we have sort of warm, wet conditions, a little bit cooler, but there's a lot of beautiful coral reefs, the largest coral reefs in the world, and some beautiful mountain ranges. And then on the south coast, we have wet, cold weather. So we've got snowy mountains and alpine areas and some really ancient forests. And the southern coast is where I live, so that's kind of where I'm wearing a jumper today because it's a bit cool. But yeah, we have very diverse climates in Australia. It's pretty cool.
Das klingt echt cool.
So there are quite a few differences between the climate in Australia and Germany, which means we must have quite different types of animals. I'm excited to hear which animals Ben will tell us about. But first of all, I'll start with an animal from Germany.
Deutschland an. Das erste Tier, worum es heute geht.
So the first animal we're going to talk about today lives in forests, is small and very cute, has a bushy tail and is very good at climbing. Which animal am I talking about?
Genau.
Exactly! The tree dormouse! The tree dormouse? You probably thought of the squirrel, didn't you? No wonder, because we all know squirrels and we see them from time to time. But there are so many more animal species in Germany that most of us don't even know about, such as the tree dormouse.
Wie eben den Baumschläfer. Der Baumschläfer ist nachtaktiv und
The tree dormouse is nocturnal, so it's not easy to see it. It is about 10 centimeters tall and eats insects, but also some seeds, buds and leaves. And now it's getting really interesting. Maybe you know lizards that can throw off their tails when a predator grabs them. Tree dormouse can also drop the tip of their tail and get away at the last moment.
davonkommen. Und jetzt kommt der Knaller.
And what's really crazy, the body temperature can drop to just under 0 degrees Celsius without their cells freezing, so they can survive really cold temperatures. Ben, which animal have you got for us?
Oh, I'm so excited. So this is my my first animal. It's called the cassowary. It's a huge bird, about 2 meters high, and it's got a really large crest on its head. It's a we call it a sort of a casque, but it's a bony crest that grows quite strong. And the cassowary is called the most dangerous bird in the world, and that's because as it walks along the ground, it's flightless, kind of like the emu or the ostrich, but it's got some really sharp talons on its feet that it can use to tear apart prey. So it's really dangerous, and it can run up to 40 kilometers an hour as well. So it's very fast, and it's a beautifully colored bird, bright blues and reds and blacks. And it lives in those ancient rainforests of Australia. It's an amazing bird. It lives mostly on fruit, but it also eats like small fish and small mammals when it can too. It's very scary too. It looks like it's kind of related to a dinosaur, right?
Does it also make like dinosaur noises? Like
They make some. I'm sure they squawk as well, but I believe they make like a drumming sound as well. Like they make that sort of deep drum sound as well.
Das ist echt mal ein richtig cooler Vogel.
Wow, that's a cool bird. Let's continue with an animal from Germany. Take a look at this cool lizard. It shimmers like an emerald, doesn't it? It's called the European green lizard. More precisely, the Eastern green lizard. There's also a Western one, and they're quite similar. Green lizards are the largest lizards that we can find here in Germany. Like the tree dormouse, these lizards can draw part of their tails to escape predators.
Teil ihres Schwanzes abwerfen, Fressfeinden entfliehen zu können.
After that, the discarded piece continues to wiggle for a while to distract the predator. It is difficult to say exactly how old the species can get, but it is assumed to be 10 to 12 years, so they can have a lot of life experience. Now, we come to our last animal for today.
My second animal, my final animal, is very, very small. So it's about 20 centimeters long, and it's an insect. So it's called the Lord Howe Island stick insect. It's very small. It's critically endangered. It's the rarest insect in the world, and it lives in Australia off our east coast. So on a lot of little islands there. It's an amazing insect. It doesn't have any wings, which is pretty unique. And it was found, it was a real adventure. There was a few mountain climbers that had gone out to climb this ancient volcano remains called Ball's Pyramid in the middle of the Eastern Ocean in Australia. And it's this, pointy little ancient volcano remain, and the waves are crashing at the base, and it's really inaccessible, and no one goes there ever. It's really mysterious. And these rock climbers were climbing it one day, and they found this one bush, Melaleuca, this one bush, and there was 24 of these stick insects eating on this one bush. And that was the last population of Lord Howe Island stick insects in the world. And so the rock climbers went back to zoos, they talked to a lot of scientists, they engaged the community, and conservation scientists went out to this ancient volcano and they rescued these last remaining Lord Howe Island stick insects, and they brought them back into zoos across Australia, and they're breeding them and re-releasing them back into the wild. And now there's over 700 stick insects that have been re-released back into the wild, and it's really exciting because they were critically endangered and we thought they were extinct.
Wow, danke Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Well, this is truly fascinating. Even though these animals all look very different and some live very far away from each other, unfortunately they have one thing in common. They are threatened in both our countries, Germany and Australia, which means there are very few animals of these species left. Ben, could you tell us what's the reason for this?
Woran das vielleicht liegen kann?
Yeah, so there's so many reasons, right? They depend on the habitat as well. So for some animals, it's about habitat loss due to, especially like forests, due to unsustainable logging practices. There's also agriculture, and in our grasslands, sometimes like housing developments and urbanization. There's also things like pests or introduced species that can be a real danger. Also car strikes, so wildlife being hit by cars is a really big one. And in Australia, especially the last decade, we're seeing increasing impacts of climate change. Things like bushfires, flooding, droughts are getting longer with climate change, and that's been a real challenge.
Ja, das stimmt leider.
Unfortunately, the things Ben mentioned are problems that exist all over the world. That's why it's important to protect habitats for these animals and many others. Anyone can participate. We also linked an article below where you can find more information. please also share the video so that more people can get to know these amazing species.
Tierarten kennenlernen.
Finally, a big thank you to Ben. Thank you for being in today's video.
Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful to be part of the program. Hi to everyone watching. Thank you so much for everything that you do to look after our environment, the people and other animals and all the species we share this incredible planet with. Thank you so much for everything you do and who you are. And it's just a real privilege to share with you today and chat a bit about the Australian environment. I'm cheering for you from Australia, everyone. Keep up the great work. And I hope you kind of learned something new as well about our amazing animals right here in Australia and Germany too. Thanks for having me, Tessie.
Oh yes, we have definitely learned a lot. So see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, Tessie, I meant to say too, if anyone out there would like to find a picture of a quokka, they're an Australian herbivore that is uber cute and extremely adorable, and you spell their name Quokka, and they have just the most adorable facial expressions, so it's definitely worth checking out.